Welcome to the relative clause of characteristic. Has a few qualities here. Instead of the indicative mood, you're going to see the subjunctive in the clause, and the antecedent of the relative pronoun is usually going to be indefinite, regular, or interrogative. Somebody, aliquis, nobody, nemo, or who, quisquid. All right, let's take a look. The first thing you need is, of course, qui, quae, quod, cuius, 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 qui, quem, quam, quod, quo, qua, quo, qui, quae, quae, quorum, 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 quibus, 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 quos, quas, quae, and quibus, quibus, quibus. Okay, here's an example. I know the foulness that clings to you. Little Ciceronian vocabulary here. Scio turpitudinem, one of my favorite words. You can see it's in the accusative here, but as we remembered from the last mini lesson, the relative pronoun agrees with its antecedent in number and gender. However, its case is determined by its function in its own clause. And so, if we look up here, that clings to you. This relative pronoun is actually the subject of clings. So the case will be nominative. So we need nominative from this, and singular and feminine from this. That's up here on the grid. And since this is a definite antecedent, the foulness, it's not a relative clause of characteristic. It's just a relative clause. The mood of the verb will be indicative. Quae tibi hieret. You can see singular, singular, feminine, feminine. Subject of the verb, therefore nominative. And this, hieret, that is indicative. If it were subjunctive, it would be ea, hireat. Let's take a look at another. There is no foulness that does not cling to you. Oh, we're getting dirty here. Est nulla turpitudo. Again, the antecedent is turpitudo. You can see that it's feminine from nulla, and it is singular. And again, the relative pronoun is the subject of the verb. That's going to be nominative. So again, quae. And this antecedent is negative, negative. No foulness, which is kind of an abstract idea, and therefore, the verb in the relative clause is in the subjunctive. This is a relative clause of characteristic. Let's take a look at another. What foulness is there that does not cling to you? Now our antecedent, what foulness? That's indefinite. And so we're going to have a relative clause of characteristic. The subject will again be subjunctive, not indicative. Hireat, not hiret. And finally, the indefinite. Some foulness. Aliquam turpitudinem. Relative clause of characteristic, subjunctive. Okay. I know a great foulness that clings to you. Now, in this case, the antecedent, great foulness, is definite, and Cicero knows what it is. Scio magnam turpitudinem, quae tibi hieret. Indicative here, not subjunctive, not a relative clause of characteristic, just a plain relative clause. And now, just to switch it up a little, I knew the lad to whom you offered a sword. More Ciceronian vocabulary. Scivi adolescentulum. And this is masculine. It is singular. So we're going to look in the singular block here. We're going to look down the masculine column here. And the case, which is determined by its function in its own clause, clearly is dative. It's the indirect object. To whom you offered the sword. You offered a sword to whom? So the indirect object is expressed by the dative right here, baby. Cui ferum praetulisti. And this is indicative. This is not subjunctive because there's a definite antecedent. Now, here's an example where the antecedent is negative, nullum. So I put this in the pluperfect subjunctive. This is a relative clause of characteristic. This one is indefinite. Is there some lad? Some lad, indefinite. And then I'm going to use praetulises, the pluperfect subjunctive again.